Welcome to Hardheaded Podcast. We're excited that you've joined us as we have a conversation. We found that a good conversation allows us to share what's on our mind, whether current events, what's grinding our gears, or our pet peeves.
It also allows us to share our top 3, a list of our favorite things on any given subject, most of which are highly opinionated. In closing, we share a good word. Solid friendships are encouraging. Even if we joke and give each other a hard time, our ultimate responsibility is to uplift each other.
Our goal is that you'll feel like you're part of the conversation, like you were in the studio with us, and that you feel encouraged after tuning in to our podcast. It's time to join the conversation. All right. Welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you with us again today. Just like always, we've got our What's on Our Mind segment, and Chet's doing that along with our special guest, Hank Jones, who Chet will introduce. We have our top 3. Our top 3 today is vehicles from movies.
Or TV. Hollywood.
Hollywood, TV, whatever.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, it should. It's probably going to get pretty heated according to some precursory conversation that we've just had. And then we're going to wrap it up with Troy bringing us a good word out of the chosen Blue Book, Book 2.
40 Days with Jesus.
And that will close us out. So let's go ahead and get started, Chet.
Yeah, so we've got Hank Jones on the line with us, not quite in studio. He's coming to us from Winnsboro,
that's right.
Winnsboro, Louisiana.
Winnsboro.
Winnsboro, Louisiana. That's in northeast Louisiana, just off of Interstate 20. Hank's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for well over 20 years. We attended Louisiana Tech University together while Hank was getting his undergrad and I was getting my only grad. But Hank's an independent ag consultant. Been doing that. You've had your own business, I think, since 2015.
Well, a little bit prior to that, really, I was in, I guess, some other partnerships and other things as an independent. But, I've been doing the independent ag consulting deal since 2003.
Okay. Oh, wow. Long time. You, I love what you use on your Twitter feed, a struggling insect taxonomist.
Yes.
You're a severe weather enthusiast. So Hank and I talk, I guess it averages out to about every other day. We text back and forth, and in the springtime we love it. I'll keep in tune to what he's doing, what's going on from a weather perspective down there, and we'll do the same for Kansas.
We compare Cape values.
Yeah. Yes. The convective available potential energy. Yeah.
Yeah. We compare that. So
yeah. I figured.
Yeah. So I would say an avid guitar player. That's one of the things I remember from early on in college, you and Kevin getting up there and picking and grinning.
Lifelong hobby.
And what some people may not know about you, I know our listeners that don't know you don't know this, but a thespian. That you're pretty active in the local theater group there.
Yes, we have a really great local theater here in Winnsboro. One of the really oldest buildings in town. It really goes back to the kind of the vaudeville age almost, and it's kind of the cultural high point of Franklin Parish. And, for those of us that call ourselves cultured, and but usually, being self-employed and being pretty high octane throughout the summer. As the farming world comes to an end in the fall, I'm not ready to quit. I need something for my adrenaline to be poured into. And usually the stage is available that time of year. So I have got to participate in several plays and musicals, whatnot, through the years, and enjoy doing that. And it gives me a different group of people to run around with, than I normally would. So,
yeah. And just kind of round out your brief resume on the intro here. Just kind of give people a little bit. Hank is an expert in his field. So you serve on the Louisiana Ag Consultants Association, and you're actually also, and I think this happened last year, just August of last year, appointed to the National Cotton Council Foundation as a trustee.
Yeah, as a trustee. they developed some avenues for we as independent crop consultants to have a role within that, to kind of help focus some funding in some certain projects that we may can be involved in. And so I was part of the initial group of 4 consultants, 2 from Louisiana, and there were 2 from Georgia, and they selected me to be a part of that group. So that was a big honor, to be a part of that. And, Chet and I have often talked about all these boards of directors and, various groups that you get, to serve in. And I guess it's just our time of life to do it. And so, but always glad to be a part of that. I've gone through some leadership training, at LSU and some other things that, whenever you kind of get in those situations to lead, they often tell you don't ever say no. And so that's kind of where I'm at in life with some of these projects.
Yeah. So Hank, what got you into ag consulting to begin with?
Well, I'll back up and kind of define what an ag consultant is. So as an ag consultant, farmers will hire me to basically help them manage their farm. Now, some people may say, why do they need to pay somebody to do that? Well, so much of the technical aspects of farming in terms of all the inputs that have to go into a crop are best left to somebody to make the decision that does not have maybe an emotional or a financial tie to that crop. We can be objective about things. And so we have no, dare I say, empathy towards the situation. We can go in there with a, just a pure vision of this is what you need to be doing.
Yeah, it's not you're detached from this is how I've always done it, so I need to keep doing it this way.
Exactly. And so people like, me and the other independent ag consultants, we are, very highly educated but experienced and, what do these crops, where do they grow best? What varieties are going to do best here? Most of us, in fact, part of my background and still is in research. I get a lot of, dare I say, chemicals or, seed varieties or, various inputs to look at before they're launched, into the marketplace to get give an opinion or get data on. And so some of these guys, they hire me to, basically walk their fields and then scout for insect pests, weed pests, diseases. I take a lot of soil samples to determine, the crop nutrition needs, help them select varieties, but managing a lot of that data too, that way that they have it, logged. But then I'm licensed to make recommendations, the chemical and the fertilizer and, irrigation recommendations to them that, so they can go forward and buy these inputs. And, that way they don't have time to do what I'm doing and still farm a farm.
Well, and yeah, because you've got all the research, you've got the technology, and you've got inroads.
Right.
I mean, and you know in detail what some of the other local guys are doing based on what you're advising them to, and you could bring all that expertise.
Right. So I was never, most of the crops that I work with are, grown only in the South, but some of them are grown elsewhere. I consult with a lot of cotton farmers, and cotton, Chet knows me from whenever I was in college. I was always just this, cotton nut. And, but rice, I consult, for rice farmers, sweet potato farmers, corn, soybeans, which y'all are familiar with that up there, and wheat.
We're getting a lot more cotton up here. Do you know why they're moving up further into Kansas with cotton?
I've seen a lot more of that.
It's your water situation. Cotton requires a lot less water than corn does and soybeans. And so in y'all's environment, y'all are much drier than us. And so y'all are easily on the northern tier of being able to grow cotton really in the world. And so and
it's basically just south of Wichita. I haven't seen it north of Wichita. In Wichita, if you're driving from the Oklahoma border up here, is about 45 miles.
Yeah, there's even some here in town in little spots.
But but I was shocked. I grew up around cotton fields. And,
me too.
And driving up here, when we still had family back in Louisiana, you would just not see it. But
Yeah.
now
You'd see corn
yeah,
more
but
than anything.
now there's around Winfield, you're getting a lot of cotton.
Yeah, it's a little bit more drought tolerant,
Yeah.
and they've tailor made some varieties in that neck of the woods for y'all that are very short season, because y'all won't be able to plant in April like we do,
Right.
and then y'all's frost is probably going to hit a lot earlier than us, and so y'all are going to have to compact a growing season in for cotton,
Right.
a lot quicker than us, and so. But yeah, it's I was never not immersed in ag. My dad farmed cotton as a kid, and then he was also an ag chemical salesman. So there was never a day in my life I didn't know that I wasn't going to be in agriculture in some form or fashion.
Yeah. And you when you were at Tech, you did your undergrad in biology? Or
It was agronomy. It was
agronomy?
plant science. It was agronomy, plant science.
And then you got your
My master's
degree at LSU, right?
Yeah, in entomology, and
Okay.
so I studied cotton insect pest while I was there, and so that was one of the better experiences. It was quite a change from going from Louisiana Tech and Ruston to LSU and Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
But it was a very good decision. I've encouraged a lot of people, if you can go to graduate school, if that's something that you can do it for yourself, because it's a great experience.
Yeah. Awesome. And while you were there, you did some pretty neat stuff on the research side, right?
Oh yeah. Being involved in agriculture in any facet of it really is a combination of all these disciplines. We think, well, you're just putting seed in the ground and sun comes up and, it waters and, poof, you got a crop. But it's really interdisciplinary in a lot of ways. It's going to combine, physics, chemistry, engineering, botany, and the disciplines within, like entomology, pathology, ecology. There's a business aspect of it. But one of the neater things that agriculture these days is getting to be is kind of an interface between technology and science, where it's not just about let's go out there, fertilize fields and see what does the best. Whenever I was in graduate school, I'll go back, and I told Chet a little bit about this, and I think I sent you a message,
Yeah,
just
you
for your
did.
reference.
Yeah, I've got it.
So in 2000, I was a graduate student at LSU, and I think this is a pretty neat story about how technology, really met the ag world. A group of NASA scientists showed up at LSU and met with my major professor about a project. And, all we knew about it as students was NASA's coming. And so that was like, what in the world is NASA doing?
You're going to be growing cotton on the moon. That's what you're coming for.
We had no earthly idea.
When Chet brought that up, I was like, I want to hear that.
Matt likes to think he's a country boy because he's got a tractor. But
I do some
Right.
planting.
And then I said, "Hey, we're going to be talking about NASA," and he's like, "Oh, I have no clue what we're talking about." Then
Okay.
I was like, he's operating on a wavelength above my own.
So NASA shows up, and these engineers with NASA are showing up with these images, and it's maps of fields in our vicinity, and they've got all of these spectrums of colors on there. And they said, "Do you know what this is?" And we said, "Well, that's the fields around here." And they said, "This is called an NDVI image, which is a normalized difference vegetative index." Well, I mean, poof, we didn't know what they were talking about, And they said, where it's green on this map is where the crops are healthier. Where it's yellow, they're not as healthy. And where it's red, they're no good at all. Well, sure enough, they were right. We were like, this is the neatest thing we've ever seen.
Right.
Okay. It blew our mind.
And they're seeing this from space.
They're seeing this from outer space.
Like
yes.
a satellite. So the satellites have the capability.
So now, mind you, this is the year 2000.
22
we were
years
like,
later.
How long have you been doing this? And they were like, we use this technology in the Cold War to spy on Russia
Wow.
to see if they were having famines, floods, to see what their crops were looking like. Because at that time, you could prognosticate, well, where are they going to have to spend money? Are they going to have to spend money on food and to feed their people? Or are they going to have good crops? That way they can put more into their military.
Wow.
So here I am looking at the product of this now, and what I sent you on that reference tech. I mean, it's a famine monitor, it's a drought monitor, it's everything. So I mean, so here we are in the year 2000 getting to look at it, and these NASA guys are saying, we want you to see if you can find if there's more insects where the color is green on this map versus where the red is. We think we can do that. Well, it didn't work out. You know, insects behave a little bit differently. And I remember my major professor after the first year was saying, you know, just because you put a man on the moon doesn't mean that you're going to tell us where a bug is.
Right.
But some of that, it was really neat because those images are being used today to do different things, such as, you know, helping us determine where we may need to put out extra fertilizer or, you know, gauging the health of a crop. I use those images every year. Some images we can get weekly. Now, if there's cloud cover, we don't get those images. But a lot of those images are very, very handy for us in terms of being able to identify, because what those lenses do in those cameras is picks up different spectrums of color that a plant would reflect or absorb. And then it produces this image, like I said, with all these colors on it. So the neat thing about it is that those images can pick up plant stress before the human eye can.
Oh, wow.
And so you may have a week's heads up notice on what's going on.
It makes some changes before it can more negatively impact the plant than when you even just noticed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has access to this kind of stuff?
A lot of things like that. Every farmer can have access to it. Now, in the public domain through NASA, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Now, there are private entities now that once those technologies were, you know, kind of advertised and like, oh, wow, we can use this. You know, you've got several private entities now that do that stuff on a per acre fee, you know, so they may charge you 50 cents an acre on your farm for every image they take.
Oh, I was just looking at Matt here, and his wheels were churning about his food plot that he's planted for deer. And
well, you can attach these lenses to drones and fly over farms now.
Oh goodness!
I got you.
Yeah, and I think
I got you. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think I was talking about that earlier. But you know what's funny is you reminded me seeing that image was there's a buddy of mine that is a helicopter pilot down in Texas, and they actually hired him with. I'm assuming it's kind of this. It's very similar software and cameras, and they would fly him over, and he would find. His sole task was to find marijuana, and the way that it showed up was different than any other plant. So if they planted it in this middle of this field, like let's say it's you got corn and then weed in the middle, they could, there's weed right in the middle of that. And they could differentiate that by these. Yeah. So it's very cool.
There are growth regulators that are used in cotton to help us manage the height of cotton. That changes the color of cotton, maybe just a little bit, turns it a little bit greener. Well, that company realized one time that they were selling an awful lot of that product to people that were not in cotton growing areas. And that's why they were using it, is just what you were saying. Those cameras that are detecting that stuff, it was changing the color of the marijuana ever so slightly where it would not come up on the cameras.
Wow.
Science.
So,
science just amazes me.
It's science, technology, and agriculture coming together.
Yeah.
For
whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Ingenuity.
You know, and like I said, so much of that stuff, you know, that's, you know, and like I said, that was 2000, you know, whenever I was talking about that. One of the things that we're able to do with those images is, since they are geo-referenced, you know, some of the spray, like on our crop dusters now and some of our ground rigs that spray, you know, they've got variable rate controllers on there, so they can I can write prescriptions based on the zones, that are in these maps and say, all right, well, I want this rate of this insecticide or a herbicide going out on that color. And I'm simplifying it.
Yeah.
But, in this color, I want this rate. Well, since it's all geo-referenced and you've got a variable rate controller, we can use those images then to write prescriptions, put it on a SD card, pop it in a sprayer, and then this airplane flies through a field, and it's just changing rates as it's hitting the different colors of the field.
That's just amazing.
I mean, it's kind of crazy because, if you're hooking that, I assume you can hook that to the tractor that's pulling the spray rig, that's got the GPS on it, and it just does it for you.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You can do that to an airplane.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I was in on some of the early research. They had never looked at it by airplane. And I'll tell this, and we'll kind of move on to something else if y'all want to. But in Rayville, Chet, right there north of I-20, the NASA folks wanted to test what variable rate would look like. And so there we were at the Rayville Airport. It's a pretty good long runway there. It's an asphalt. It's not, a dirt one, And so we had literally, I don't know how many hundreds of yards of this tape string that we rolled out, and we had to hold up. So there was probably, I would say, 20 of us holding up this tape string, above our head.
Yeah.
And they loaded up the first variable rate controller, that was certainly in our neck of the woods, with this, purple dye, and then they had set the controller on there to put out different rates at different intervals.
Yeah.
And so we were out there all day one day. And it was about this time. I remember it was freezing cold and getting just hosed down with purple dye while we were holding up the string to test this. And then they had this contraption that would roll this up. It was some type of spectrometer or something like that it would read the distance and the rates that were being put out. And I said, that was my little tiptoe into NASA research right there.
Yeah.
Just doing, stuff like that.
Getting sprayed purple dye from a crop duster.
Getting just turning purple, and all that stuff. But, so that's been interesting to me to, kind of see some of that.
At least it wasn't crimson.
Stuff. Well, right. At least they did us right, being LSU folks.
That's right.
But like I said, ag's an interesting place, where, all these interdisciplinary things, come together. And like I said, I think it's all by nature that we have to pay attention to the weather. The weather's our biggest variable that impacts us, especially here with hurricanes and, weather, y'all can have the hurricane or the tornadoes and the hailstorms,
right.
Just, and all that. But, and at the end of the day, it all boils down to being a good business person.
Yeah.
And so, it's really interesting. It's not just kind of the old Farmer Brown on an old open cab tractor with a, piece of wheat straw in his mouth and a straw hat. It's a lot of things that go into making this big ag world, run.
So I definitely knew, just some of the folks that I know up here, like the tractor technology has come so far. Guided, you're basically on cruise control for the most part.
Yes.
But I had no clue that this satellite data and all this kind of variable output sprayers, and that's fascinating to me.
Well, then the cost of that equipment, you've got to be smart.
Well, and it pays itself back.
Right. Well, that's why that's why you have guys like Hank.
Yeah.
When you've got a $400,000 piece of equipment, you need to pay for it.
Well, and you still have to make a crop, and that's one thing I tell folks about technology. Technology will not make you a crop. I said, it's just a tool in the toolbox to help us manage it to get the most out of it. And so, and you can be, I tell folks, I said, you can get too much technology, and I know that, but a lot of times technology gets too far out in front of us.
It's a tool. Sense. Yeah, it's a tool. It doesn't need to be the focus, right? It's it's
a tool. But some of the technology that is out, like with moisture sensors and stuff, that is probably 10 or 15 years ahead of where we're at right now. And it's good that we're getting a look at it, but for it to be truly implemented in a way that we can use it, it's still a ways off. But it's a neat time. There's a lot of really cool things for students right now if they're in ag to look forward to. I'll put it that way.
Well, one of the other things I want to talk to you about is it's not a local industry anymore, and we've got a couple folks that come here in the office that are full-time farmers, and I remember last time I was talking with Zach Short, he was talking about a drought in Brazil, driving some, I think it was wheat prices to where they were going to have a really profitable year not because anything had to do with Kansas other than it wasn't the same as it was somewhere else in the world. And so it was driving demand. So how do you keep tabs on what's going on around the world in your commodities?
Yeah. Cause at the end of the day, I have to know what the prices of commodities are, because therein lies the value of what I recommend. There has to be a value there. And so sometimes knowing what a farmer's, what's your potential margin here, like I said, if crop prices are low and inputs are high, we're going to have a pretty sharp pencil this year. But, one thing that I'll say about, everything is worldwide. Your farmer's market in your garden, that's local. The vegetables we get, that's even worldwide now, But the big crops like wheat, cotton, soybeans, corn, I'll just pick those four. Those are worldwide crops. And, you may sell them locally, yes, but they are just about all meant for export market these days. We can easily meet our demands, but we export the vast majority of our crops. So when you look at who is our competition, who's our buyer? Well, that's going to be more than likely China, and those countries, in the Orient. Europe buys a good bit too. And so, and within that, there's your customer. So then you're looking at, well, who's our competition? What's going to make the price go up? Well, South America is our competition in the grain world. And so they actually produce more acres of soybeans than we do. So the weather that impacts Brazil, and of course they're opposite season than us, being Southern Hemisphere. So what happens down there, it's easy for us to watch this time of year. And so if they're not getting rains in the Mato Grosso area, well, we're going to keep an eye on that, because that may mean that, well, there's going to be a shortage of soybeans on the export market. That may mean that our soybean prices go up. So there's a lot of things to look at. There's some interest right now with what's going on in the Ukraine. Well, Ukraine's one of the world's biggest wheat producing areas. And so any kind of disruption that goes on in that part of the world, you got to keep an eye on. And so, there's a lot of things that go on with, say with cotton, for example. India is one of the world's biggest producers of cotton. They do not export because they have to use all their cotton. China is in that same category. They have to import. Well, we don't have to, we get to export a lot of our cotton. We do keep some for domestic use, but it's all exported. And so that's good for us, that there are buyers out there now, for lack of getting too politically confusing. China is a very tough customer, with anything. And so they, they can really make things complicated for some marketing and some stuff for prices. But, right now the prices of commodities are really, really strong right now, but it comes with some scrutiny, because there is such an increase right now in our input cost, whether it's COVID related or whether it's just what's going on worldwide. But fertilizer prices, I think that's even made Wall Street Journal and everything.
Well, yeah. So we've got a local commodities report that's on our Wichita Talk Radio when it's early on my drive in, if I come in early. But that's something that he's really concerned about is fertilizer prices. Heck, I mean, even deer corn this year was ridiculous. I was paying $4 a bag last year, and I was paying $9 this year for deer corn.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
And
what's
so
going on with fertilizer prices? What
with
drives
fertilizer
that?
well, there's two or three factors. And so with again, fertilizer is a worldwide deal, and there's not as much fertilizer domestically produced as you may think. And so, in a lot of places of the world, it's a lot cheaper to make fertilizer because they can go out and mine phosphorus and mine potassium. Well, we don't have that luxury. Here in America, it's far cheaper for us to go to Morocco and get it, or Kazakhstan, or something like that, or even China.
Iraq.
Iraq, exactly. And so traditionally, it has been much cheaper. In the last, I'd say 9 to 12 months, the pandemic certainly did impact things a little bit worldwide. But the biggest thing that it impacted was, the mining and the production of this stuff, but also the shipping part of it.
Yeah.
So if we're importing this stuff from overseas, barge traffic was greatly minimalized, but also the cost of putting that stuff on a barge tripled. And so not only was production decreased, the increase in cost to get it here really went up. And China has shut down all exports of fertilizer. And so whenever you think about that,
wait. So they don't export how much they have been and they just stopped?
They have been and stopped. Now, we don't technically import a bunch from China, but other countries do.
And whoever they're not going to, they're going to get it from our source.
So exactly. And so Russia has kind of diminished their output. Russia is a big producer of fertilizer to the world, but they have said that they were going to start greatly diminishing their export amounts of fertilizer. Now, we can all speculate why, but the fact remains that they're going to do that and have started doing that. The other thing that is linked to nitrogen fertilizer is that natural gas is used to produce urea, which is then in form, turned into nitrate fertilizers.
Oh, naturally, we all know that.
Yeah, exactly.
All I know is I basically put it in my truck.
Knows that.
I just learned something.
You don't already know, of course. But, but of course, natural gas, all these oil prices have gone up, and so the cost of producing these things has gone up. And then you start trying to ship this stuff worldwide. It's just turning into a big nightmare of multiple scenarios at play that has caused it to go up.
So our farmers, what you're saying is our farmers are going to get squeezed real tight.
The margins are tight.
Yeah.
Even though that the commodity prices are high, and there's plenty of demand out there, for our crops. There's plenty of demand. The prices are strong, but the input costs are going up. And that's just mentioning fertilizer to you. Seed is the one thing that has not, because, seed doesn't have to go through as many layers of people. Most of that stuff's domestically grown. The outfits in the United States, really weren't impacted. But for herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, things of that nature, a lot of those are, again, they're produced overseas because it's much cheaper. And so if anything was produced in China during the pandemic, they just shut it down. And so we've got all of these shortages. I was going to say, if y'all need Roundup for your home, you better run, go get it. And you're probably going to pay double for it what you did last year.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was expensive last year.
Yeah. Guess what happened in my house? There was something had spilled in my garage in where I had some stuff stored. I'm like, what is it? It's like a white powder. I'm like, what happened here? Yeah, I had a whole gallon of Roundup sitting over there, and my son threw something down and busted that jug, and it poured out everywhere and then dried, and that powder was what was left. Like that. That's real good. That whole gallon of Roundup going.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's a lot of different things that are going on, not just here in the States, but around the world that it all comes back to what's being on your acre. And so, it's I guess in the ag world, it really is an ag world. And so, you have to kind of keep up with a little bit of what, current events and what's going on around the world, because you can link it back to what's going on with our prices and stuff like that. So,
yeah, wow, that's amazing. I'm in awe of what I've learned.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are just a couple different wavelengths between what you're operating on and what I operate on a daily basis.
Matt has a Kubota with an air-conditioned cab and a radio.
Well, look,
and Bluetooth.
Nothing wrong with that. And, like I said, and look, Chet, you'll find this funny. I've told people the reason I have a job, goes back to the book of Genesis. Whenever we're sitting there in the garden and God basically curses them and tells Adam what, you're going to have to toil the earth for your food.
Sweat of your brow.
So, yeah. So I said, nothing good came from that, of course, but I said, at least I have a job.
Well, sin, brought in a lot of hurt, pain, and heartache in ag consultants career fields.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, by golly, we were going good until Adam listened to Eve. And so
I love it. Well, Hank, we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be back and want to hear about your top 3 Hollywood vehicles.
Good deal.
At Admiral's Pennant, our mission is to offer the latest and refined, high-quality masculine products and services to the modern gentleman, as well as provide him with the tools and products necessary to look, act, and feel confident in his appearance and social interactions. Check it out at admiralspennant.com. Without it, you might as well shave. And we're back.
I got him again.
Moving on to our top 3. Which again today is top 3 vehicles from movies or TV.
I'll say this right out of the gate. This is one of the harder top 3s I've ever had to do.
Now why? Because I thought it was really easy, and I think just from pre-recording banter, we have different views on vehicles.
Maybe not. I don't know.
We're about to find out.
But I could tell you, it was hard to narrow this down.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going first.
I know this. I know mine are right, and I'll be disappointed if y'all don't have my 3.
Yeah. So. Well, we need some variety, right? We can't all be right.
Troy.
All right. So I did top 3 movie vehicles. Like this, you didn't say like top 3 favorite of yours or the top 3 in the world, like ever movies.
It's left up to interpretation.
Exactly.
Man. So you're trying to preface that you're about to be wrong on all 3 of yours.
No, I'm about to be right on all 3.
Number 3, the Starship Enterprise.
No, I would never in a million years say anything from Star Trek. Thank you.
That's
Star
not your show?
Star Wars only, and you still need to watch all 6 movies.
Mm-mm.
You're discounting.
Definitely the first 3. But anyway. All right, so number 3. Elanore.
No, from Gone in 60 Seconds?
Yeah. The 1967 Mustang Shelby GT 500 that his character, I can't even think of his name, Nicolas Cage, he had to have Elanore.
Yeah, which goes back to the previous Gone in 60 Seconds when it was the same car.
Right.
Just so you know, it was 2 movies. You remember when I corrected you on that?
Yeah, I remember. There's Chet always bringing up the past.
Mm-hmm. Only when it benefits me, Troy.
That's right. That's right. All right. So number 2, the 1980s A-Team van.
That's a GMC.
Who didn't want that as a kid? I pity the fool.
That's an awesome vehicle.
Especially for the 80s and the way they drove that thing. Oh my gosh.
There's this, because we're in the wintertime, just coming out of the winter, but I've noticed this Chevy Astro van, which was built on their truck chassis. There's this dude driving around a 4-wheel drive Astro, and I love it. Like, I'm thinking, but if I had one, I'm painting that sucker like the A-Team van.
Yes.
I'm doing it.
I would love it.
I fully agree. anytime now we pass one of those old 1980s vans, which is what, twice a year, it harkens me back.
Yeah.
To like, man, that's awesome.
And I always say, I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, number 1, the Batmobile.
Which one?
Christopher Nolan's.
No. The one with the big tires?
Yeah, because that thing's going over anything.
No, I think the Tim Burton Batmobile beats that.
That thing had no turn radius. You get that? No.
I'm just telling you.
It had bombs in the tires.
Yeah, but he had to like harpoon a city wall to turn a corner that you could turn in your truck.
It actually looked
awesome.
It looked like a bat. Like,
I was like, that's ridiculous. Why does he have to harpoon? Why can't he just turn? No, he can't. I'm going with Christopher Nolan all the way. And Christopher Nolan's Batman's my favorite, The Dark Knight. So there you go.
I disagree with you on that too.
It is the best Batman movie out there. I just wish DC would get their universe together and do something like Marvel, but it's never going to happen.
I don't think.
I'm very disappointed.
They just need to shut it down.
Yeah, I agree.
All of it. They Marvel too. Just you come up with some new ideas, folks.
Well, yeah, it's never going to happen. We've been talking about this forever.
All right.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Disney and Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just shut it down.
I do say the same thing.
Worst thing George Lucas ever did was sell to Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's getting a little too complicated. And I would agree with that about the Star Wars deal.
Yeah.
It's getting too much, and I'm a fan, and I can't keep up with it.
I know. All they want you to do is binge and watch more content. They want you in front of your TV, so they keep making extra stuff, and it's all crap.
It's starting to get really lame.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna name a couple honorable mentions, and I'm gonna bet that nobody knows this first one. It's from a TV show from the 80s that only lasted like 10 episodes, but I remember it because of the vehicle. It's called The Highwayman. And the guy had a semi that was actually, the front end of the semi was a helicopter. It was a helicopter embedded into the semi, and he's in the cockpit when he drives the semi. And in the back, he's got a Lotus, like for his car. So it's kind of like a blending of Knight Rider and Airwolf.
Airwolf, yes.
So that thing was
I gotta look this up.
awesome. And like, so, something's going down. He'd pull over from the interstate and flip some switches, and then the propeller, the rotors would pop up, and that joker would take off out of his truck in the helicopter. It's awesome. I remember it, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing. And then, I had to look it up, and it didn't make it that long from that. You see it? Did you find it, Troy?
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. If that's it, right?
That's it. Well, they painted flames on it. It normally didn't have flames. But I tout it.
We have an Airwolf reference.
Yes. That was going to be one of my vehicles because I consider aircraft a vehicle.
Yeah, look, it crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Trust me.
So another honorable mention would be the Magnum PI Ferrari 208 GT.
Yep.
Nice car, but that's honorable mention. So number 3.
Gosh, we haven't even gotten your 3. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Aston Martin DB5 driven by James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
First in the movie Goldfinger. That is an awesome car.
Yeah.
Number 2, see if you can guess the TV show and the car when I describe the paint job.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Cocaine white. Ferrari Testarossa from Miami Vice.
Miami,
Vice.
yeah.
Yes. That was the actual paint color
Convertible.
that they had that on there was the
Cocaine
Ferrari Testarossa.
Yep.
A cocaine white.
And then honorable mention to the car he had before the white Testarossa. That was the 72 Ferrari 365 GTS. This is a green convertible that got destroyed because they got sued by Ferrari when Ferrari found out that was a kit that they had put on a Corvette frame.
That's awesome.
And then the number one, 1969 Dodge Charger, General Lee
Oh yeah.
from the Dukes of Hazzard.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, I knew it was on somebody's.
It better be on more than one.
Oh yeah.
All right, Hank, what you got, man?
All right. Well, I was glad to see 18 Van made my honorable mention,
All right.
Yeah.
and I was very glad about that. My other honorable mention was, and I debated this because after I said, yeah, this is going to make my list, and then I said, I don't even like this vehicle, was the Ghostbusters wagon.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that they had.
Uh-huh.
That's just part of that movie.
hearse.
It was a character. I mean, that was a good.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
vehicle that was kind of a character.
Right. And, you can still hear the siren and all that stuff. And so, yeah, exactly. So number 3 for me was the DeLorean.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I
Back
didn't
to
even
the
think
Future.
of that one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so, yes. And just
Of course, everybody wants a
very
time
cool
machine.
tidbit. You can go on the O'Reilly's Auto Parts website.
Yep.
They've got a DeLorean,
The flux capacitor.
flux capacitor.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, they have a one.
So-
It's 1.21
Gigawatts.
gigawatts. If you search for that in their the part lookup,
Yeah.
it'll bring up a flux capacitor.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
A flux capacitor.
Gigawatts.
And so,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
number 2 was the General Lee,
Yeah.
and which that whole show really is really known by the vehicles. That's all it was car
Oh,
chases,
yeah.
Yeah.
and everything. So Boss Hogg's car, for
Yes.
crying out loud, was just as iconic. Really,
Oh.
as
Hey, heck, Uncle Jesse's pickup, that Ford.
wait, look,
Yeah.
Cooter's
Daisy's
truck.
Jeep. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, Cooter's truck was.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
Cooter.
So all of those, every one of those, just the whole show.
Yeah.
But the other one that I think is just, to me, just epitomizes vehicles in movies is Bandit's
Yeah.
Camaro and
Yep.
Smokey
Oh,
and
yeah.
Bandit. And so that one right there.
I
And
thought that
of
was
course
was that not a Trans Am?
it was a
Yeah.
Trans Am. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, dadgum. I was
Yeah.
thinking T-top Camaro for some reason. Yeah, it's Trans Am. But that thing right there, if I was alive, was that 77 or 78 whenever that movie came out? I wasn't even born, I don't think. Man, you better believe if I was 15 back then, that's the car I'm getting.
Yeah.
That thing is just iconic, and it just makes you want to do,
Stupid.
chase, run from the law. But that's another movie that every vehicle, it's nothing but a bunch of chase scenes. I said you could put Buford T. Justice,
Yep.
convertible, in there too. In the 18-wheeler, the Jerry Reeves.
That's another iconic vehicle.
Yeah,
Old
so
Snowball.
so whenever I was thinking about this, I'm like, man, it's like those shows, some of them are just their vehicle shows more than they were anything. So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we haven't been. Well, yeah, Troy, you just live. You had one 80s vehicle in there. But other than that, other than Elanore from your more current Gone in 60 Seconds, but that's an older car. So the only really bad one we've had so far in the top 3 is your Batmobile.
Says you.
Yeah.
All right. Those are good, man. Matt, what do you got for us?
All right. My number 3, and I can't remember which Batman it's from, but it's the Bat Cycle, that motorcycle that he's riding. I think it's Dark Knight.
Well, it comes out of the Batmobile. Because the Batmobile gets all blown up and he rolls into this thing and he comes out on the cycle.
But the cool thing about that,
The wheels turning?
the wheels turning,
Yeah.
was awesome.
Well,
And-
Troy, you got some company on.
Yeah,
Dumb
I like
selections.
So honorable mention would be the Batwing from whatever you guys are calling Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
Would be the Batwing, when he goes up and goes into the moon and it's the bat signal.
Yeah.
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 That was
That's pretty
awesome.
cool.
Going back and actually watching that and seeing just how
Cheesy. It
How-
really
yeah, right,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
but it was still awesome.
Hey, at least he didn't talk like this. I'm Batman.
He probably had to have some vocal
It's like,
reconstruction.
why don't you give a bad Winston Churchill impersonation for the whole movie? Like, okay, say no more.
So I will back up and do a couple of honorable mentions. So you mentioned the DeLorean, and that brought to mind his Toyota.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
That Toyota was bad to the bone.
The dude, I had
That
dreamed
Toyota
about
was
that Toyota.
yeah, that was legit.
Yeah.
I would have really liked to have had that one. Number 2, another similarity, Elanore.
There you go.
I've always wanted.
Oh yeah.
I've always wanted that. Especially that color, the silver with the black.
Smoke
It's
gray or
just-
whatever.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 1 would be the Challenger from the first Fast and the Furious. The one that he pops the wheelie in when they're
Oh yeah.
racing towards the train track. So it's right next to that Supra. You've got old school, you've got the new Euro, and he's having to use NOS to try to keep up with this 9-second car. I mean, it's insane.
Chet checked
And then
out
they-
when you said Fast and Furious.
When
I'll tell you, that car was probably the best actor in that movie.
hey, but again,
And the Oscar goes to.
but if you look, I mean, come on, if you look at old Buford T. Justice, you know, I mean, that wasn't really great acting, you know, in Smoking the Bandit either, but it's all about the cars. And that's what that whole series, save the last 15 that they've done.
Yeah.
But the first 2 or 3 were
About the cars.
are all about the cars and kind of, you know, getting the parts together and street racing and doing all that stuff. And, you know, just kind of, it always brings me back because that movie came out, you know, early 2000 or 2001, somewhere around there. And, you know, during that time, they still had the, well, a few years prior to that, they had the drags here on Seneca. And you would just drag Seneca from basically 31st South to like Pawnee
Yeah.
area. And then there's that whole parking lot where they've got like the old Westway, or now I think it's like an Ace Hardware or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd all park in there and it'd be just, I mean, big old party.
I
And
bet they still do that. You just don't go.
no, the cops started really hammering it down on those activities. And I don't think kids do that anymore, obviously with fuel prices. Because we were
No,
paying-
they put tin cans on the back of their muffler to
there's
annoy people.
there is a lot of that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of
That
whole-
they got from Fast and Furious.
No, those movies were not about the cars. It was all about family.
Yeah, whatever.
It really was.
family.
You asked Vin Diesel.
Anyway, that's my number 1. Be the Challenger.
You picked a good car. Well, you should have found it in a different movie.
I don't know that I've seen it in any other movie where he takes off, you see those tires flex and that car just pops a wheelie for dang near a quarter mile. I mean,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Hollywood.
I would say that I've seen that movie, but I haven't because I was doing NASA research.
that's a good reason to have missed the movie.
Oh, that's good.
I didn't have time to waste on that.
Yeah. So
That's pretty good.
All right. Not a bad top 3.
I guess we're gonna have to come back with Hollywood airplanes or aircraft.
Yeah, because we all went,
We went on the ground for
vehicles
the most part.
on the ground that we would love to drive and enjoy.
But like the Airwolves and the Millennium Falcons and the
yeah, I
You
was
know.
trying to even think of a horse, or something like
ooh, yeah,
that.
silver.
Yeah.
IO silver.
Black Beauty.
Seabiscuit.
Seabiscuit. That's the
Yeah.
one I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to our good word, which today is Troy.
All right. So we are still in the Chosen 40 Days with Jesus book 2. We are on day 8. The word is wav. Wav. Speaking of movies. No, the word is love. And they have Matthew 5:43 through 48. You have heard it. Sorry, that's wrong. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Excuse me. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. You, therefore, must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So loving everyone. And Jesus said, the two new commandments he gave, which really weren't new, but he emphasized them. Love God, love your neighbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here, Jesus always likes to take things to the next level. And he is saying, love your enemy, love your neighbor, and hate your enemy is what you've heard. But I'm saying, love your enemies and even pray for those who persecute you.
Yeah.
So he takes it a step further. Not just your enemies who don't like you, but pray for those who are actually doing harm to you.
That probably didn't sit well with most people.
No. And he also, in that passage, he says...
Probably doesn't sit well with most people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the... It seems impossible at times, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you have enemies and enemies are in front of you. Like that's a really hard thing to love, especially in the moment.
Matt's been trained to shoot the enemies in front of him.
Exactly. So, and also it says, you therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. But I think God knows that we're never going to be perfect on this side of heaven. So why did Jesus say that? What do you think?
I mean, it's kind of a deep answer, but we obtain perfection through his sacrifice, not through our actions.
Exactly.
Right. So I will be perfect entering into heaven because of his sacrifice on the cross, not because of me loving my neighbors the best.
Right.
Or loving my enemies the best.
Right. So through Jesus' sacrifice, death, burial, resurrection, and your belief in that and willingness to follow him and live a life that was like his, then you are given the Holy Spirit that dwells within you, right?
To help you work towards
your perfection.
Sanctification.
Sanctification
If you want to use a big Bible word.
Big Bible word.
Fancy.
Yeah.
So using that, then you are given the strength to love your neighbor and love your enemies and love those who persecute you. So can we do it on our own? No, I don't think we can. I think in the moment, maybe you can if you don't have Christ. I think you can show love and you can do things, but when it all hits the fan, will you be able to do it without Christ's love and dwelling inside of you? I don't think so. So I think that's where we get our strength from. And they did pull Philippians 4:13. I can do things, all things through Christ who strengthens me. So yeah, the key to love is knowing Christ. What do you think, Matt?
It's a button. God is love.
And it's true.
Did you ever have those?
No.
Those little buttons? So
No. Well, awesome, man.
They must not have those
Great job.
where you were born in Oklahoma. We had them here in Kansas. And I did notice a distinct difference between somebody who is actually from Louisiana and two jokers who, I don't know, Chet's from Oklahoma, but
No, he's talking about my accent, not sounding like your accent, Hank. Let me tell you why. Is my mom was born and raised in Ohio, and she was taught, and we have some listeners from Ohio, may still be taught, but she was taught as a kid growing up that if you have a Southern accent, you're dumb. Like,
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
I think Hank dispelled that myth today.
well, that myth was
NASA jargon.
that myth was dispelled.
Yeah.
That myth was dispelled
Phosphorus.
when my mom's best friends talked like Hank when we moved to Louisiana. And but when I remember coming home from school after we moved off the Air Force base, and I don't even know what the conversation was, but I said the number 5, but I said it 5, and she said, "What'd you say?" And I said 5, and she's like, "No, it's pronounced 5." It is not 5. It's 5. You don't say it like that. So she was very hard on me early on to not do that because she didn't want me to be viewed as not smart by bigoted people that live up north.
Relatives in Ohio.
Yeah, just everybody. Look, that was her world, right? So she's thinking the world thinks that people with Southern accent are dumb. But
look, I'll tell y'all this one, and y'all have kids, I'm sure they teach phonics, up there. Phonics was nothing that I was ever taught. Were you ever taught phonics, Chet? I mean,
no.
I guess
No.
it didn't exist, maybe,
right.
whenever we were kids. And so, but I look back and think about how I would have been taught phonics were by people who talk just like me. Okay. And so whenever I was trying to help my kids with phonics, and it was a letter grade and, for my kids. And I'm like, I don't know what OU sounds like, you blend that,
Yeah.
And then I realized that my kids were being taught now to recognize phonics whenever they're trying to spell words. Well, whenever I would call out spelling words, they would, and like 2/3 of their spelling words would be wrong because phonetically I was speaking incorrectly. And they were thinking, well, I'm just going, phonetically hear what he says. I'm going to put it down on a piece of paper. Nope, doesn't work. You know, so yes, we are vocally impaired, in some manners, but we make up for it in other areas.
Well, and it's funny because I had problems understanding. I remember having a conversation with a guy that was from Eastern Tennessee, and
they say burries and murrayed and
he said I hurt my back, and I was like, well, how'd you do that? And he's like, well, I was riding my back. And I said, you hurt your back on your back? And he's like, I was riding my back. I'm like, what? And he was riding a motorcycle, but the word back and bike were both pronounced back.
Riding my back.
I was riding my back and I hurt my back. I'm like, what? What'd you say?
Well, and it's no surprise. I mean, y'all could pick up on my accent, and and I travel a good bit, in a lot of different parts of of America, and it's no surprise I'm not from where, I've got an accent that people are going to look at me and say, oh, you're from the South.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I love to play this for, so where do you think I'm from? And Louisiana is usually about the 5th guess.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always Texas, and then Georgia after that. And then they'll start working west from Georgia.
It's all right. What's this? Alabama.
And what the neat thing is, because I can't sound Cajun, they don't think I'm from Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
And so, which, I tell people that that's a different state. I'm from North Louisiana, not South Louisiana.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah. I live above Alexandria.
Yep. I grew up in the crossroads, Matt, that were both redneck and Cajun met.
Yep. I grew up, I basically grew up in East Texas. I mean, from Shreveport.
Yeah.
Well, the dividing line is where the Catholic Church gets bigger than the Baptist Church. That's whenever where you're in South Louisiana.
That is so true. Yep.
Well, Hank, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me. As a fan of the show, I'm honored to, get to be on, and hopefully your listeners will enjoy learning a few things and hear me tell some tales and everything, and really enjoy it. Would love to come back some other time.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's some other stuff we'd love to talk to you about, non-ag related.
Oh yeah, that would be great. And even if you want to have me and Beef just get up here and debate something,
that might be a ticket-worthy occasion.
We need to do that one in person for sure.
I don't know if we can handle all that, but we would have to be in person because we can only have one phone at a time.
Well, you could do. You would have to count the number of times Beef says dominate and destroy and things like that. Own, So.
Oh man.
Tout. Yeah.
Tout. Oh yeah. Tout.
So if any of our listeners want to get in touch with Hank or follow what's going on in his life, Hank, I guess your Twitter handle is the best way to do that. It's at Hank CGAG. CJ.
Yeah, CJAG. Yeah, that's kind of a keeping up with. I kind of keep it lighthearted and stuff like that. But that's probably the best way to kind of follow along with my daily ramblings and adventures.
Well, that and most all of our listeners are probably ignorant to the fact that Louisiana has a black bear population, and you happen to get a lot of black bears on video with your farming ventures.
Oh, I walk amongst them.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's nice. So yeah, that's at Hank CJAG on Twitter if you guys want to follow along.
Put it in the show notes.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Hank. Thanks for joining us.
Thank y'all so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us. All right. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.